Welcome to this video. This is a video discussing philosophy of Genesis, philosophy of God, and scale. Philosophy of scale. My name is Kevin, and my pen name is Kalexkas. Kalexkas is a perfectly formed name axiologically for the value of the word and the letters. Perfectly. As perfect as it can be. First, I'm going to discuss philosophy of Genesis. Then I will discuss the abyss and the scale, and then I will discuss philosophy of God. Philosophy of Genesis is basically creation. Okay? God, this is getting into God theory, but God hasn't been created, just is and always will be. God, in my theorizing, my philosophy, has a being, is sapient, and most importantly, exists. And that he is a man. Now, you can argue that he's a woman, but that's as far as the argument goes. He's either a man or a woman, and the children are the progeny. The children are undoubtedly the progeny, both man and woman. You can argue gender. You could say there's no such thing as gender. You could say you could play with gender. Well, that is the philosophy of the abyss. Philosophy of scale, if you understand me. So, philosophy of Genesis. We have 21, which is perfect. 21 positions, 21 faculties of our existence. There are 21 things that we can do with our being. So, that includes sentience, mysticism, thinking, knowing, logic, wisdom, memory, number, elements, energy, vitamins, chemicals, movement, sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, shape, weight, and body. I beg you to find something else. There's literally nothing else in the world. There are these 21 things. These make up the world, externally and internally. The reason why I define the difference between external and internal is because to your understanding of the general understanding, most people would say that there is an external and an internal world, or that we are just external, or that we are just internal. I would argue that there is both an internal world and an external world. Internally, we are beings in a body. Body qualifies as one, the one position. The least of importance, really, our body. Our sentientness being the most important. It's our self, it's our soul, it's our spirit, it's our ego. It's everything that makes us individualized. Okay? So, sentientness is the most important in Genesis. To God, God is to a greater degree, not a lesser degree. So, 22 to 84, because there are 84 positions for God, because it actually goes 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. God existed perfectly without number, because there are 6 realms, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, right? 6 realms with 63 worlds. 63 is perfect. 63 is 6 realms going up by 3, inside of 3, 63. It's perfect. You can see that that number is not necessary for God at that point. Where a number comes into existence and becomes relevant, which it did, when it did, 84 became the more important number. Because that was 63 plus 21. and we went up from 18 to 21. There are perfectly 21 colors. These 21 colors we see. There is no such thing as invisibility. I've covered that in many of my videos. Invisibility is a construct of science and physics. It is a thwart. It is a lie. It is a trick. There is no such thing as an invisibility. Excuse me. So, now that I've listed the Genesis, I'm going to get into the Abyss a bit. The Abyss divides itself up into 4. 4 because it's one more than 3. It thwarts the 3. On that scale, you have your conceptions of what you've heard before, which is heaven and hell. In the Abyss, there's 4 sectors. There's paradise, there's heaven, there's hell, and there's Terra. And funny enough, Terra really spells earth. We are, as earth, disconnected from the universe for a very good reason. We are at the 4th sector. The nothingness, the emptiness, the disconnected. That's how it has been, and that's how it will always be until Earth ends. When Earth ends, a new universe will begin, a new abyss will begin, but that has nothing to do with existence, which is where we are from, where we are truly in our being. These 4 sectors of hell are scaled, and it looks a bit like this. You've probably seen it across before, or a graph. So that is what it looks like. Para, heaven, hell, Terra. Earth is in the lowest sector, which is why we are the most primitive, which is why we are the most disconnected, which is why we will never find life. One reason is that we are very far from all other life. 2, that life does not want to contact us. We are primitive and useless, and there's really no use for us. Unless, of course, an evil race, which would be in hell, in Sector 3, wanted to control us and take advantage of us, which is possible. In fact, it's very likely that that's what's going on. There's always been reports of spaceships from the beginning of time hovering around Earth. And I'm not talking about aliens. That is such a ridiculous thing. There is no such thing as aliens. They look like us, they're beings, they're humans, and that's the end of it. Anyways, on these planets in hell, the color associated with hell is red. The color associated with heaven is blue. That's very common. The color associated with Para is white. And color associated with Terra is black. But because it's scaled and because it's 24, which is really 3 more than 21. The reason why it's 24 and yet there's 4 positions and it should be 25 is because hue, which is in the 3rd position, splits into light and dark. You have you have invisibility, you have hue, and you have transparentness, if you like. It's like clarity. It's like clarity can be made physical. Clarity can be put in the form of a color. Clarity is a color. Okay, it's something we see. Now, transparency is this notion of a clarity that cannot be physical. It's the one that's in the air. You don't see its movement because it's clear. It's obviously not real, but this is the point. This is what you believe in. You believe in transparency. You believe there's light and dark of a certain color, and that is distinct. You believe that there's invisible atoms, that invisibility is real. So hue splits off into light and dark. So you have light, dark, bright, and dim. It's another way of looking at it. Transparency is bright. You look at the sun, you see transparency. Transparency isn't real, but there's a way of thinking it through. There's a way of creating a reality that isn't there by being in the abyss. So the bright light, the dark, and the dim, or invisible, are the colors of the abyss. So what I was explaining is that hue splits off into two, therefore that's really one position. You have transparency, which is one position, and invisibility, which is one position, making 3 positions added to 21. Which makes sense. You're expanding on the already established existence to create 24, which creates 108 in total positions, including God's positions. 108 times mantras is very bad for you. It's actually 108 that is practicing Jainism, that has to do everything with the abyss and hell and heaven and paradise and all that stuff. In fact, paradise is often known as the higher realm, the actual existence, if you like, or heaven is even commonly known as that. But no, that's not how it works at all. Existence is existence. Paradise, heaven, hell, and Terra are versions of existence in the abyss. And if you're wondering where we are in the abyss, we are in a sectioned off area of already established existence where the abyss exists. And the abyss moves around like a ball in existence, moving around existence. It really just leaps around. Literally leaps, meaning it's one moment it's here, the next moment it's there, without moving there. Okay, it doesn't move through invisibility to do that, unlike physics would tell you. Epistemology is a representation of paradise. Philosophy is a representation of heaven. You can switch that around. You can say philosophy is a representation of paradise. Epistemology is a representation of heaven. Physics is hell. And science is Terra. So the actual word that I should be using when I'm describing my philosophy of Genesis isn't philosophy at all. It should be just art. Unless, of course, art is this abstraction. So I'm just going through my thought process here to show you what it takes for me to establish my own philosophy. So art may be the center. We could say that's the 5th position. Okay, so what you do is when you come from existence, you prepare. You go to a stargate. A stargate will take you into the abyss, which is just a circle. It's a sphere in existence. So this is how we get into the abyss. We go to a stargate. We literally walk through a stargate, just like Stargate SG-1, and we are in the abyss. Once we enter the abyss, we are amnesiaed immediately. We don't remember anything. Okay? You go into amnesia because amnesia is the first step. It's prep. Prep for what, you might be wondering? Well, why enter the abyss to begin with? Well, the reason why we enter the abyss is to die. Quite simply. To do things that we cannot do in existence. There are rules in existence. God has created rules. You cannot have intercourse with another man's wife, or vice versa. So if you don't agree with that, well, you'll enter the abyss, where you can do plenty of that. So you can see the motivations behind the people who enter the abyss, and the reason why you're here is probably for one of those reasons. That's a sad truth. Unless you came here under the pretext to help, to take people out of the abyss, which is a bit of a suicidal mission. However, that's one option. It's very unlikely. Most people have come here for the wrong reasons. Very few have come here for the right reasons. Some have followed their partners. Their partners entered the abyss. They go into the abyss. But they go in for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. So you enter this through the stargate, you enter into the abyss. Once you are in the abyss, you enter through paradise. Okay? You will live on a planet, you will live a long life. 400 to 1,000 years. Then you must realize who you are again and make the choice to leap into heaven. That step between preparation and purged is very interesting because you actually come back to exiting the abyss before you decide to really descend again. And we know the difference between ascension and descension in the abyss, because ascension is getting out and descension is going in. So, what we do first, we go through the stargate, we enter the abyss, we go in, we live on a paradise planet, we live for thousands of years perhaps. Then we realize who we are again, why we're here, and we say, I can't wait to go further down. So we choose. Now, how we choose is very different. It's not done through your own conscious mind, it's done through your aura. In Egyptian, it's the Ka and the Ba. They are separated. They interconnect, but they are separated. They communicate, rather, but they're separated. Your Ka will do all the work for you. You've come here with a checklist of things you want to do, and that is what you're going to do going through the process. Your Ba is your lower mind. It's like the difference between consciousness and subconsciousness. As you go further down into the abyss and descend, you go into unconscious states. Well, really you start at an aware state, and then you're into a conscious state. So now you're conscious in heaven, you're purging yourself. So you're getting ready to die, is basically what it is. Then you pacify yourself, you go into hell. That's when you reduce all of what you are to one thing. Isn't that interesting? Physics is looking for the one thing that creates all other things. And physics is categorized as being in hell. They work perfectly together, don't they? So, we descend further into hell, we are pacified. We have folded up our being to one thing. And then we are going to kill that one thing by merely thinking that all that existence is a hallucination. That is called death. That is when we literally, you've heard TED Talks, you've heard people say it. Oh, this is just a hallucination. This is just some fake reality you're in. It's all just part of your brain. Even not saying too much, but it's just a hallucination. There's nothing real about what's going on. That's science. Okay, science is going to say it's a hallucination. Science is death. Physics is hell. Not so much death. However, that's really where physics is at right now, but it will, as it is doing, come to a more primordial, immortal state where, okay, well, atoms don't really die, therefore we don't die. See, that's getting out, that's ascending back to a higher thought form, which is the highest thought form, which is back in existence where you are primordial. Okay, you are not immortal, mortal, modal, or mode, or modus, mode, modal, mortal, immortal, and primordial. That's on the scale, because we're doing philosophy of scale, right? So, there is a fifth position, and this is God's choice. Okay, this is a very serious one. This is art. And this position is annihilation. The color associated with it is violet. All this gray, white brotherhood, violet flame stuff, very evil. Well, in fact, the scale would have it go good, bad, evil, incarnate, and primitive. It's funny how backwards the world is, how tricked we are. In terms of states and power, something very important to people. How does the abyss scale? Well, the scale goes from democracy to socialism to communism to anarchy to fascism. Fascism is the absolute lowest. It is the worst. It is primitive. Utopia is back in existence. And because we don't have government in existence, utopia is where all the citizens are the government. Then there is no government, right? Really? That's what's happened. If all the people in the state are the government, and we all have equal voting power on all things that we do together, then there really isn't a government. There's just being a citizen of a certain group. So in a way, utopia exists. In a way, utopia doesn't exist. That's why we know that power and governance is a part of the abyss. There should be 3 or 4, possibly 5 or 6 things that are not real, that yet in the abyss are the most important things. Like, for example, a physical universe, governance, money, sexuality. All those things are the most important. But yet, none of those things in utopia, in existence, matter. They don't even exist. Now, you have to understand, if you can go from thinking in a physical universe to thinking in a non-physical universe, means you can think that way. Which means you are thinking that way. It's not some biological, chemical, atomic system that's thinking for you, that's just physical, that decays, that dies. That doesn't make any sense. You're thinking, that is a part of your faculties, and that is not physical in any way. There is a connection, but that is not the same. Now we'll get into the philosophy of God. So God existed before us. He had 6 realms, 84 worlds, six realms, 84 worlds, and that's it. When God created us, 63 worlds. When God created us, it became 7 realms, 84 worlds. So if you're wondering how many colors there are in existence, there are 84. We, the children of God, only see 21. There's a 63 discrepancy there. But we know of those colors because God can prove that those colors exist to us, but at no time do we actually see those colors and get that sort of proof. If you think about it, if there was just one color, God couldn't see anything. Nothing would be distinguished. If there were 2 colors, you would have repetition problems. So you really need at least 3 colors to start with. 3 and Trinity is so freaking perfect, it's unbelievable. 3 is God's number. God multiplies by 3 to create higher realms, to create further worlds at a more or less degree. If you're wondering about Masonry and why there are so many degrees in Scottish Rite and why there's so few in York Rite, because York Rite is actually trying to establish a real Masonry for the children of God. Scottish Rite is children playing God, trying to be God. 33 degrees is an insult to God. We cannot have 33 degrees of Masonry. Masonry has everything to do with Genesis, okay? Genesis is not an official position in the faculties of our existence, but it's in a way, it's like a all-encompassing way of understanding what that all is. Masonry is this sort of above mysticism thing that is what Masonry is. Masonry is by far one of the most important things in the world. What it does is it creates your being. Masonry. It masons your being. Create and sculpt your being. When you want to create something out of your being by combining your faculties, okay? We combine, we don't split. God splits his faculties to create more. We combine our faculties to create more. We are from down up. We count from 1 to 21. And on another note, there is no such thing as 0. 0 makes no sense. Because 0 is like saying there is plenty of black over here, but there is 0 black there. Meaning there's 0 black. Well, that logically doesn't make sense. 0 black wouldn't be something logically true. It would just be white. Whatever color is there as opposed to black. There is no present 0 anywhere in existence. 0 is false, is a fallacy, it is completely untrue. So, back to the color. 84 colors, or 63 colors. God had 63 colors, then to 21, 84. What we do to go into the abyss is we add 3, we get to 24. And what we do to get further than the abyss, which is the pit, or the hole, whatever you want to call it, we get 27. So that's 6 more. The first 3 are merely destruction. And the last 3 are death. So now I'll show you what I've developed here. You can see that. So you got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. Death, destruction, creation, which is 21, and God's existence, which is alternatively something else that we don't understand, but however we know it's there. We can quantify it. Because once the way 3 works, one of the categories of the faculties of 3 is all, and therefore all seeing, all knowing, all memory, all da-da-da-da. So once 21 came into being as well, number was created out of that. And then number helps us quantify and understand God. But at no time do we understand God, because God can be without number. So that's God theory. So I've covered Genesis, I've covered the abyss and the scale, and I've covered God theory a bit. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will be posting a new video shortly, probably discussing some of the same things, but not obviously the exact same things, just expanding on it. Thank you for watching.